Annunciation Radio presents Say Yes to Life with Peter Range, Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for Christian Virtue.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Say Yes to Life, where we learn to embrace our Catholic faith in this secular world. I am your host, Peter Range, Senior Fellow for the Center for Christian Virtue, and welcome to show number 445 as we continue the fight for every single human life, born, preborn, and yours in our world today. On today's show, we're excited to welcome back Kristan Hawkins, President of Students for Life of America. As President of Students for Life of America, Kristan has spent more than 16 years building a national network of more than 1,400 student-led groups in more than 50 states, layering campus activism now with political engagement through Students for Life Action, which she also heads. Each year, Kristan travels across the nation to speak on college campuses such as UC Berkeley, Harvard, Dartmouth, Ohio State University, to educate our youth on the horrors of abortion. Video clips from these tours have been viewed tens of millions of times. She hosts a bi-weekly podcast called Explicitly Pro-Life. Kristan regularly appears in the New York Times, Washington Post. I just saw her on Fox, Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, NPR. Has been interviewed by every major television network in America. Kristan and I are going to be talking about her friend, Charlie Kirk, Students for Life of America, their work on college campuses, and much more in just a minute. But first, let's go ahead and take 180 seconds around Ohio and the nation to talk about what's happening in the pro-life movement and the news. First, what an absolutely incredible witness to the love of Jesus Christ. Turning Point USA co-founder Charlie Kirk, of course, died last Wednesday. It's still hard to even say that. Shot an event at Utah Valley University at one of his large crowds, outdoor prove me wrong kind of debate. But this past Sunday, a memorial service was held. Close to 100,000 people from everyone from President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who articulated the gospel very powerfully. But most importantly, Erica Kirk, Charlie's wife, and she spoke these words, and I want to read them to you, about her husband's assassin. She said, "My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That young man on the cross, our Savior said, 'Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.' That man, that young man, I would forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did, what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love." What a courageous example of Christianity, of love, of forgiveness, of mercy, right after her husband had been murdered. Please continue to pray for the Kirk family, pray for this nation, pray for his kids. It's hard to talk about. But we move on, we continue to talk, we continue to fight for life because that's what we've been called to do. And so also pray for Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy. Just learned that the FDA is going to conduct a review of abortion pills. Now, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but medication abortion, it's used in nearly 2/3 of all abortions in the United States of America. So we need the administration to step in and do something. So we'll see how this turns out, but just pray for HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy, as the FDA kind of does this review of the abortion pills. All right. Third, speaking of just a time of mercy and the need of mercy, I want to ask you to pray for a Catholic cardinal. 2 Catholic bishops, actually multiple now, I think it's up to 4 or 5, have been reaching out to Cardinal Blaise Kupich of Chicago. I may be mispronouncing his name, but Cardinal Kupich of Chicago is planning to honor a radical pro-abortion Senator, Dick Durbin of Illinois. Bishop Thomas Pepperockery of Springfield, Illinois, was the first to speak out against this. He said, look, given Senator Durbin's long and consistent record of supporting legal abortion, including opposing legislation to protect children who survive failed abortions, this decision risks causing grave scandal, confusing the faithful about the church's unequivocal teaching on the sanctity of human life. Honoring a public figure who has actively worked to expand and entrench the right to end innocent human life in the womb, undermines the very concept of human dignity and solidarity that the award purports to uphold. Now, Durbin's being awarded for his stance on immigration, but, it's like awarding Stalin, who was responsible for the murder of millions of people. It's like awarding him for building a few hospitals in Russia. Durbin supports an intrinsically evil act. How can we as a church be awarding him for upholding human dignity? It literally coming from the Office of Human Dignity in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And folks, that's why the Essential Summit, the March for Life here in Ohio, it's so incredibly important. So the Essential Summit next week, we're actually having a gala that's moving forward tomorrow night. Charlie was supposed to speak there in Cleveland. We're moving forward. Allie Beth Stuckey is joining us, as well as Charlie's pastor will be there tomorrow night in Cleveland. But next week, we have the Essential Summit, and we have speakers like David B. Wright, Willie Robertson, Professor Lee Strain from Ohio State University, Attorney General David Yost, speaking on the pro-life cause, speaking on how do we reform this culture to be more Christ-like. EssentialSummit.org. Tickets are still available until Sunday night. So join us, again, EssentialSummit.org next Thursday, and then the March for Life the very next day in downtown Columbus. All right, now it's time as we welcome back Kristan Hawkins, President of Students for Life of America. Kristan, I know I can't even imagine because you knew Charlie. I mean, I didn't know Charlie, never met him, but it's hit me really hard. I can't imagine for those of you in the movement who knew Charlie personally. First, maybe we just start, where did you hear the news? And I think I saw some video of actually you kind of sharing that news on a college campus. But what struck you about the reaction to the tragedy of Charlie's death? And then if you had a chance to be there or to witness it, the memorial service this past Sunday.
Sure. Well, I was on campus I was actually at the University of Montana, Missoula, doing the exact same thing that Charlie was doing. I had a change my mind table. Charlie and I frequently texted about the different campuses we would crisscross and be on. I texted him the day before I was on the campus that he was set to speak at in just a couple of weeks here. And so I was doing exactly what he was doing when he was shot. And, I stopped the debating of the 150 students. And I announced to them that Charlie had been shot. We didn't know how the extent of this, how bad it was going to be. And the students laughed and they cheered. And I actually stayed on campus for about 45 minutes after that until I simply just could not deal with them any longer. It was ironic because I've been there for 2 hours trying to make the case to these students that human life matters, that inconvenient human life matters, that even if these children aren't planned or maybe aren't wanted at the moment by their mother, it doesn't mean that their lives are any less valuable than ours, and that all human beings have the very fundamental equal right to human life. Mm-hmm. And then to announce to the students that my friend had been shot, it was horrifying to see them laugh and cheer. One student even shouted, "This is war." Oh. And, we posted that video. I had our team, after I left campus, work overnight on that video. And then, while we found out that Charlie had tragically passed away, because I wanted to get out, I wanted people to see just how depraved our culture can be, and really this result of a culture of death, and where this culture of death goes. It doesn't just stop and end with killing defenseless children that we can't see or we can't hear. This is what the result of the culture of death is, that we dehumanize human beings so much that we're now to a point where, millions celebrated online, on TikTok, these awful and vile videos that people posted, the comments that people wrote after Charlie's death, some of the very own statements that elected officials have had in our U.S. House of Representatives have just been absolutely horrifying. I was back on campus this past Monday. I had gone to Charlie's funeral in Arizona and took a night flight to get to Washington, D.C., to be at George Washington University, be back on campus with our students, showing them why we must be unafraid to continue to speak out for truth and for life. And again, The day after his funeral, students were cheering and saying his death was justified and it was perfectly fine for Charlie to be assassinated. I mean, it's absolutely horrific when you see these students and young people in real time in front of a camera, knowing that they're being recorded, say some of these awful and vile things.
Charlie was someone who literally gave his enemies, those with completely different viewpoints, the microphone. And he said, ask your question, make your point. And he stood for free dialogue. And so when you have people celebrating the murder of someone who openly stands for your ability to share your point of view, to ask your questions, it's a sad state of affairs about what it says where we're at as a country right now. But you hit the point on the head too. I mean, it's reprehensible that any of the students would do that. But to have following elected representatives, late show TV hosts, judges, here in the state of Ohio, celebrating, laughing about his murder. It's like, my God, where have we come as a nation? It's absolutely appalling and disgusting.
It absolutely is. And I just think time and time again, we in the pro-life movement, those have been fighting for life for so many years. We've been warning about this. Mm-hmm. We've been telling people this. We live amongst a culture of death. And so I think it's just terrifying to see it in real time. And I think people don't understand it doesn't stop with just killing the baby in the womb. This corrupts our entire society, corrupts the minds of our young people who have, who've always known in their life that they have the quote right, they have the opportunity to kill human life that they deem unworthy, or that they deem to be inconvenient. And then are we surprised that they think that when they hear lies, and the lies that the left continue to propagate, and they continue to do in his death about Charlie, about his views on issues, are we then surprised that they think his death was acceptable or, quote, understandable, as a student told me?
It's awful. It makes me think a little bit of St. Mother Teresa said, if a mother can kill her own child, what's keeping you from killing me? And that's kind of the culture we're living in today. And for me too, I'm on much a smaller platform than you, and Charlie certainly was. But I've spoken to crowds of thousands of people before out in a public setting. And I think this assassination hit me differently, because I think there's a feeling that this really could have happened to any one of us who fight for life, for family, for reason, for open dialogue in the public square. I wonder if we could reflect a little bit more together on how this tragedy, it's connected to that larger culture of death, which sees life as expendable. It sees anyone with really a conservative viewpoint as expendable. And that's just a harsh reality. I mean, it's conservative people who are being shot at, who are representative conservative values. They're the ones kind of being shot at, like Charlie, and people laughing. I mean, can you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot and you had conservatives celebrating the death of a liberal activist or whatever it might be? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's hard to even imagine somebody celebrating that. And if you would see some sort of tragedy like that, you informally, especially as Christians, especially as pro-life activists, condemn that, right? Mm-hmm. Of reminding people about the humanity of every single person, that every single person on this earth, whether we agree or disagree with things they say, is valuable and worthy of life.
Yeah. I'll never forget praying with the abortionist here in Toledo. He's now in federal prison, but praying with him and having this moment of the Holy Spirit just kind of reminded me that, hey, this is my son, and I want him home. And always remembering that in my conversation. So I never celebrate the death of anybody, whether he's a enemy of the United States of America or anything of that nature. I want the repentance of every human soul. And so we on the pro-life side, we can't lose that as difficult, even in this situation, which I think makes Erica's example so powerful, of forgiveness, of mercy. And as much as this rouses and it gets me angry, to remember to love and to forgive. Now, you knew Charlie personally. What are you going to miss most about him? And him being in this fight for life with us? And Any thoughts
Sure.
on legacy of Charlie Kirk moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a lot of stories of Charlie, and he was a skillful politician, I would call him, even though he didn't serve in political office, of being able to navigate difficult political situations, making a phone call, talking through how to approach a difficult issue to actually move the ball down the court. And he was 100% with us in that pro-life fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially in the 2024 election and in the months since the election and the inauguration of President Trump, Charlie was a key ally for our movement in ways that I can't even publicly disclose. And we have lost a massive voice within, kind of, I would say, the Trump orbit with Charlie's assassination. The person I could call and say, hey, we have a pending situation. We need some insight. We need someone to make a phone call. Charlie was the first person who we would reach out to every single time.
Wow.
And the loss is not only personally felt for my friend, is not only felt in sympathy for Erica and his entire family, his babies, but it's also a loss that the pro-life movement's going to feel. Because we've lost that voice, we lost that advocate, and I think that's something that we'll continue to feel for many, many years moving forward, and it's utterly devastating. I think that when we think about Charlie's legacy, the team at Turning Point has done a fantastic job of working through this tragedy, of pulling off that massive funeral, the largest ever. It was Billy Graham-like revival at the same time, pulling this off, this mass event, the requests for new Turning Point groups that are coming in. We've got a ton of groups requests coming in at Students for Life, of students who've been sitting on the sideline and have been inspired by Charlie, watching his videos, and saying, I need to do more. I need to step up, right? I think that's his impact and his legacy is going to be felt for decades to come, especially when you think about the critical role Charlie played in bringing young men back to the Republican Party. Yeah. When you look at the 2024 election outcomes, even when you look at the day before Charlie was assassinated, I think it was 2 days before he was assassinated, NBC put out a poll and they interviewed Gen Z women and men who voted for Kamala and women and men who voted for Trump. And the men who voted for Trump were the most conservative of the four demographics. They were the only ones, conservative men, who voted for Trump to say that the number one definition of success for them in their life was having kids. It was a 1 through 13 scale. Women who voted for Trump, I think having children was maybe 4 or 5. Women who voted for Kamala, it was 12 out of 13. Wow. That's an impact that's going to last for decades. And I think that's, when we think about the future of Turning Point, the future of our movement, that's why I think a lot of young women are excited to see Erica Kirk step up as the new CEO of Turning Point, because she'll have a very unique way to reach and to speak to young women across the country and really ask them, the lies that the feminist movement's been selling you, are you really happy? Is this really, and I think she's already started to do that. She did that in her address at Charlie's memorial this Saturday. It's so powerful, and I'm really excited to see where she takes the helm of leading Turning Point, and we're excited to continue to work with her at Students for Life, because we consider ourselves allies of Turning Point on campuses. Often our groups are doing like-minded events, or they're co-hosting events together. I speak at for Turning Point chapters often. I've got a whole list of Turning Point young people have reached out to me to speak, and so that's been exciting too, because that's something that's changed recently. I know when Charlie had first started Turning Point, it was very difficult to get the students who are kind of general, quote, I'm using air quotes here, conservative, to have a pro-life speaker or to even engage in the pro-life issue. That's what they called it, the issue of abortion, which I don't even like that term. It's just a human rights ballot, and you and I know that, Peter. Yeah. But that's not the case anymore. And I think, a lot of that's because of Charlie. It's because of Erica and Eric's influence on Charlie. Erica, who's been a conservative and Christian activist her entire life, and has I first met Erica years before I met Charlie at one of our Students for Life fundraisers when she was competing for Miss Arizona. So I think there's a lot of hope that we have to see Charlie's legacy continue, and we're going to be doing our part. We've been advocating and pushing. I was just on a call with our Capitol Hill staff about pushing for a national holiday, Charlie Kirk Free Speech Day, because now as school's back underway, we're seeing free speeches. I had an hour-long call with my lawyers this afternoon just with what the cases we're seeing with our Students for Life groups on campuses already.
Wow.
We just getting ready to put out a press release, about a woman in a stroller who started berating our students at Harvard and then flipped over the entire table at Harvard University.
Wow.
It's unbelievable, some of the stuff that we continue to see on campuses. I'm going back to campus next week, and I just got a huge bill for now. My students, just to host me, have to pay this bill for security because the school doesn't trust their own students not to attempt violence.
Wow.
And somehow now, this becomes a heckler's veto because it now forces pro-life and conservative students to come up with, we have to ante up the money to pay for our own protection on state-funded university campuses.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, I wanted to talk to you about that because, as you mentioned before, you're crisscrossing Charlie on college campuses. Practically then, with the security, how much are things going to change for Students for Life of America, your approach, your work on college campuses? You mentioned before, hey, you're not stopping the work, though. You're going to continue moving forward.
No, absolutely not. Our students were out there the day after his assassination. We had just launched the day of the week of the assassination. We had launched our 160 campus Every Human Life Has Valuable campus tour, where we'll hit more than 40 states and 160 campuses. The day after Charlie was murdered, our students were bravely out there speaking the truth, the prophetic truth that all human life, even those who say things you don't like, are equally valuable and deserve the right to life, which is something obviously Tyler Robinson didn't understand when he committed that heinous, evil act. And so my campus speaking tour continues on. Albeit we're making changes. I went to George Washington University this Monday unannounced, so I was actually able to be outside with a bulletproof vest with increased security. But the campus tour stops that I've announced publicly, I'll be at the University of Louisville next week, which is going to be a very vicious school. This is a school where the day after Charlie's assassination, there were flyers all over the school depicting Charlie the moment he was hit and struck in the neck with a bullet saying, "Debate this," all over campus. So that's the environment I'll be heading into next week. So, of course, we've moved my event inside, which limits, snipers and things like that from attacking me and increased police presence. But we'll continue forward, but we'll be making lots of changes. It's our security costs will be fourfold of what I told my board would be this year. Looking into plexiglass, bulletproof plexiglass for future outdoor events. This is a sad. I was not a very happy camper. I was sitting in the office the other day of the gentleman who was doing this custom vest for me. The fact that I had to go and spend time away from my mission of ending abortion to be fitted for something like that is just outrageous. We always knew, and we've always told people, free speech is never free. It always costs you something, right? It can cost you friendships. It's cost some of our students grades. It's cost people their jobs, which is illegal and you should never be. But it's never been without a cost. But it shouldn't be costing you your life, and there shouldn't have to be these discussions. I just had, thousands of dollars of blinds delivered to my house today because I have to shore up my house, and my house has to be protected now because at what point do these, radicalized people stop? And how do I protect my children even when I'm not here? And it's very scary. What we saw happen to Charlie was, to be honest, my husband's worst nightmare for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that, but this is what the left wants. This is what Satan wants. Satan wants us to stop.
Yeah. He
wants us to be afraid. He wants us not to speak out. And so this is why we cannot allow that to happen. Yeah. And this is why we have to keep moving forward. And this is why our Students for Life group and conservative groups across the country have to keep speaking out because they know they are losing. And the left has been, and I hate to get I don't want to get political on this, but there is a leftist movement within our country that has been utterly radicalized. I mean, yesterday we saw at the ICE center in Texas where a gentleman an evil monster took his own life after he killing people and shooting others, right? And he had anti-ICE etched in his bullets to kind of mimic what Tyler Robinson had done against Charlie. I mean, there's something deeply wrong with our society where we have political leaders who use words like fascist, who refer to anyone who they disagree with politically as literally Hitler. And then they go, well, we don't advocate for violence. We don't advocate for violence. But you then also have to couple that and that continued rhetoric that they hear every day on social media, that they hear every day on CNN and MSNBC. You couple that with a generation of kids, especially young people, who are the least churched, who literally do not know the gospel narrative, have never stepped foot in a church, who do not worship the God, the creator of our universe, who worship, and we all know humans are meant to worship something.
Yeah.
And when you don't worship the God who created our world and created us, you worship either self, the God of self, or you worship your political leaders. I mean, that's why when I keep thinking about that awful day at the University of Montana, students cheer. I'm like, why would they cheer? Like, what? I get maybe they don't like what Charlie was doing, but why would they cheer? And it was like, the only thing I could think of is like the enemy of their God had been defeated in the moment. Their God being some liberal policy, liberal position, that is their God. And when Charlie went down, their enemy was defeated.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to continue this until we bring our nation back to Christ. I think that's what's so powerful about Charlie's memorial, the 100 million people that tuned in, the 200,000 people who showed up there in Phoenix, is that it wasn't just a memorial for a great man. It was a revival, a spiritual revival.
That's what we need now more than ever. Kristan, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thanks for sharing your reflections. May God rest, embrace the soul of Charlie Kirk, be with his family, be with his friends, and be with our movement moving forward, and cover you in protection as you continue to proclaim the truth, no matter what obstacles we face in the years to come. Thank you, Kristan, for joining us. And everybody listening, please go today, Students for Life of America. Go support them, support their work. They're going to need more financial help and assistance, folks. So please go support their work that they're doing to proclaim the truth in the public square. We can't stop. It may feel like the fall of a republic, but the kingdom is still going to rise. God bless everybody.